Greetings and welcome to the Ripple Effect. I am Selena. So I'm a little tired today, but I'm trying to be consistent in my ministry on YouTube channel. So today's topic, I'm going to just jump right in. I want to talk about how women, some of us, use relationships as a coping mechanism. And what that entails is if you've been hurt, let's say you're a single mom and the child's biological father has chosen to walk away. Like I talked in the previous video, that can leave an empty place in us for male energy. And so what we'll tend to do, some of us, we'll see a guy or know a guy who is interested in us, maybe sometime in the past or even something recently, but you know, and I know that you really aren't feeling him that way, meaning to pursue a relationship with him. But because he's there and no one else is, some of us may take advantage of being in a relationship with someone who is just a placeholder. And you know that he's just a placeholder. And the problem with that is, like I said, for me, like the problem what I had with DB, my ex, was that he was, I'm just contemplating what I was going to say because, he was somewhat of a placeholder. I wasn't really interested in being pursued in a relationship because of what I was just coming out of. I really wasn't like, I want to be your girlfriend, you can be my boyfriend, just because of, he really didn't have a lot of things that I felt a man should have when pursuing a relationship. But because it was just, okay, all right, trying to be boyfriend, girlfriend, I was not intentional. And some of us, when we're going through hurt, we will just open up our hearts, so to speak, to be with anyone when we really are not interested in that person. And of course, that can cause hurt feelings, okay, on his part and your part. Because if a guy knows that you're trying to use him, you best believe he's going to try and get that get back. You may not see it today. You may not see it tomorrow, but understand most men who know they're getting played, they're doing something in the background. Even though some women can say, we're clever, we're, better at cheating, which it shouldn't be. I mean, I don't know why that would be a game to see who's best at it. But if you're going through a time in your life where you're in your single season, okay, like the children of Israel, if you're in that desert, let's hope, Lord, it's not 40 years. But if you're in your single season and God wants you to wait, the object of your single season is to work on you. While you're going through this, especially if you're a single mother, your children should be your priority. Not at the cost to neglect yourself. Let's make that clear. So while you're in your single season, focus on your children, focus on yourself, focus on the gifts and talents God has given you to share with the world, to see how you can further, I was going to say educate yourself, but not necessarily within the walls of a university, but pursuing your gifts and talent that God has given to you while you're waiting. Because the problem is, some of us are in relationships right now with men we don't even like. Forget whether you love them or not. You don't even like them. And it's because it's just somebody, it's just a warm body in that bed just to say that you'll have someone. I just realized I have this one piece of hair that's sticking up and okay, sorry about that, commercial break. And sometimes we'll just settle. And I know that that may be a trigger word for some people about settling. You should be allowed to compromise, not settle. Now, for me, I can say I settled because he had nothing. He had no car. He was living with his mother. He was barely working, I think, part-time. And let me say this, okay? I know that there is this thing that you see the potential in a man, okay? Which is all fine and G-O-O-D good. However, he must have the qualities there first. And I mean, like, oh my goodness, what are you talking about? It is not our job to make a man. Build a bear, that's not our job. The qualities that he has to be there already. So if when you meet a man, he should be, gentle, kind, and a provider, all these things, not going to go through the list because some of y'all might have different things on your list. But what I'm saying is he needs to have these qualities up front that you can see. You cannot teach a man purpose. You cannot teach a man to find his God-given reason why he's on earth. And some of us want to pick up the role of being someone's mother. Whoops. Yeah, I said it. Because there are times, and I'll tell you, like the situation I had with DB, and he would always say, like when he used to see me with my son, how I care for him and just the relationship that I have with him, like, oh, I wish my mother was like that. I wish my mother taught me this. And just after about the first or two compliments, okay, I get it, I'm a bomb mother, I know. However, it was almost as if he'd envied my son because he did not have the things and tools in his childhood. So what that did was it created an environment where he wanted a mother, not necessarily a wife. And what that looks like is he needs somebody to wash his clothes. He no longer knows how to cook for himself. He can't wake up on time for work. He doesn't know how to get to a destination by himself. Then there was, ooh, Jesus. Just because I don't necessarily want to tell him my business, but just to help you and encourage you how bad it can get. Do you know DB, the devil's brother? He was in college, okay? Because he wasn't working. So I encouraged him, hey, like, go back to school, follow your dreams, And I have a gift for academia. I do. Told you I graduated with a 4.0 GPA. Well, in the end, it was a lot of stress in the marriage. So I think it was like 3.7, something like that. But anyway, so I would help him with his homework, help him study for tests. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that as a caring and a loving partner. However, when he didn't want to do it for himself, and it was like, could you do my homework? You person who cannot find within yourself the will to want to do better for yourself. He was such like a, careful when I say this, a helpless cause. And I say that because if a person is broken and they cannot love themselves, they will never love you. Never, ever, 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 ever. Because they need that within themselves. The scripture tells us in Ephesians 5 how a man will lay down his life for his wife. And I'm not saying he should be going out like set it off, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is he loves you so much he's willing to sacrifice things. And because some of us are in relationship with men we really don't like, he's not willing to do those things. And now you're mad because he's not doing the things that he would want to as you being his wife when you know he's just a placeholder. And I know that area can sometimes get a little tricky, but we have to be careful. If we're dating, we need to be intentional. And if you're asking for these things from a man, make sure that you have some of the qualities too. I once heard a pastor say this. Like, there are a lot of women out there who have a list of what they want in a man, and one of the things was a six-pack. And he said, do you have one? Ouch! I found that hilarious because it is true. If you want someone who's physically fit, yet At 10 o'clock at night, you eating biscuits and gravy and fried chicken. You cooking cakes at 3 a.m., chewing on cupcakes as your first meal of the day. How can you ask to be with someone who's physically fit? And I know that's going to step on some toes, but it's the truth anyhow. Because if you're seeking certain qualities in someone else, have you turned around and looked in the mirror? Have you seen those qualities within yourself? Someone who's faithful and honest and has a level of integrity. And sometimes because we're just being in a relationship to be in a relationship, we're not dating intentional. And when we're not dating intentional, the qualities, whether the person has it or not, it really does not matter. You're just there to be there. And I'm not saying if you're in a relationship with someone right now, you ought to just throw the person away. No, you have to be willing to work on the relationship, because a relationship is work. 24/7, it is work. And there are a lot of people who are just lazy in relationships, just lazy. And then you wonder why it's not working. You're just lazy. You do whatever. You barely talk to the person. You don't show them love in the way that they need it. Because sometimes we will show love in the way that we want to be loved, not what the other person needs. Yeah, think about that. Tap back if you need to. So we have to be careful when we're in our single season that we're not just being with a person just to be with them, or pursuing or being in a relationship because you want a father for your children. You don't necessarily like the person. You don't love them. They may be providing for you financially or emotionally, spiritually, and they're just filling this place in your life and you really don't want them. And so we have to be careful when we're in our single season to make sure, one of always, that we're in our prayer closet and we're seeking the Lord to find out for ourselves, am I healed? Am I whole? Because becoming healed takes work. And I'm going to close with this. When I finally broke free, praise his holy name, of my toxic, abusive marriage, it took years to become whole and to heal. And I had to put in the work, because he was very nasty with the words that he would say to me, very verbally abusive. He also committed adultery, so it was a lot of hurt and pain that came along with that. So I had to take time, one, to fall back in love with Jesus, because sometimes we'll go through something, ladies, and we'll be like, God, where were you? Why did you allow me to go through this hurt? And sometimes we're the ones, because it's like we find ourselves, got shot in the foot. We're the ones holding the gun. It was a self-inflicted wound. And so when you have gone through something, you need to take the time to heal. I was in my prayer closet. I did a lot of fasting. I took time to isolate myself, and not necessarily being away from friends and family, but I took time away from social media just because I didn't want to see what was up there. Also because he was still trying to contact me before the divorce, and then after the divorce, just really bombarding me, trying to, I don't think he was necessarily trying to reconciliate as much as it was, guys don't like to lose. Men do not like to lose. And so because he was constantly contacting me, I had to separate myself from social media. I make sure that I was, like I said, praying and fasting, surrounding myself with people who loved me and supported me. Because there are some of us who have friends or family members who like the other person that you're in a relationship with. And because of that, you really can't separate yourself. They're constantly talking about the person or trying to maybe mend you guys back together. And you have to learn how to take time for yourself in whatever shape or form that looks like for you. Sober, without the use of drugs and alcohol and also sex. Some people use sex as a pacifier to get through hurt and pain because it does release endorphins. It gives you the feel-good feeling. And some people will use sex to numb themselves because they don't want to think about the hurt. That's why the red light district and OnlyFans and all that stuff is still working. So if you're going through something, make sure you're not using a man as a coping mechanism. You need to learn how to try Jesus. So that being said, ladies, as always, thank you so much for watching.